Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Impartation Moment on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Today's section, I ran with you the Azygos Vein. And this is going to be a short video, trying to explain what this whole Azygos Vein is. Now, this Azygos, literally means unpaired. This vein is going to, connect the superior vena cava to the inferior vena cava. So it means that it's going to be at the right side, okay, because the superior and inferior vena cava are draining eventually into the right atrium of the heart. So this Azygos vein, what it's going to do is that essentially it's going to drain the posterior intercostal, veins. Okay, those posterior intercostal veins are going to drain into it. It means that essentially it's going to drain that posterior aspect of the thorax. But one thing we find is that, yes, although we are calling it Azygos vein, yes, it's lying ventral to what we call the bodies of the vertebrae. Okay, what happens is that, towards the right, we have some other forms of this, vein towards the left. But it's not an exact copy as this one. That is why we are calling this one Azygos vein. And so, without much ado, let's look at what I have for you on it. So there we are. This thing that you find over here is the Azygos vein. Okay, this vein over here, yes. So if you can see, yes, this is the heart. Okay, anterior to heart, we are going to have what we call the anterior mediastinum. Yes, where the heart is the middle mediastinum. And where you find, the esophagus in the Azygos vein, yes, you are going to have what we call the posterior mediastinum. So it makes sense that we say that, yes, this Azygos vein is a content of the posterior mediastinum. As I said, it's going to connect what we call the, inferior vena cava, okay, inferiorly to what we call superior vena cava. Okay, and by so doing, what happens is that, yes, it's going to arch over what we call the root of the right lung, yes, to go and, of course, drain into what we call the superior vena cava, usually at the level of T4 or sometimes T4, T5 vertebral level. Okay, so that is what we see. Now, if you remember, we talked about some major openings in the diaphragm. One of the major openings, which was to the left but most posterior, okay, was what we call the aortic hiatus. We said the aortic hiatus was going to open at the T12 vertebral level. The AAT content, apart from the aorta, yes, the thoracic duct, and of course the Azygos vein. So the Azygos vein, yes, will ascend, okay, from the abdomen into the thorax by going through what we call the aortic hiatus. Okay, aortic hiatus. So that's what I want you to know. Now, if you see this Azygos vein, you can see that there's the, posterior, these are the posterior intercostal spaces. These veins which are draining, these are the posterior intercostal veins, yes, draining into what we call the Azygos vein. Now, let's look at the full extent of this one. So there we are. Now, if you look at this, now this is the bodies of the vertebral column, okay, of the vertebrae. Now, if you look at Azygos vein, is towards the right side. Okay, Azygos vein is towards the right side. So this is what you see. You see that its formative tributaries, yes, will be what we call the ascending lumbar vein, but towards the right. So the right ascending lumbar vein combines with what we call the right subcostal vein. Okay, so that eventually we form this kind of Azygos vein, and usually it's going to take place at the T12 vertebral level. So at the T12 vertebral level, usually we are going to see the right ascending lumbar vein as well as the right subcostal vein, okay, forming this Azygos vein and then eventually ascending upwards. Now, as it ascends, it also receives some kind of tributaries from what we call the posterior intercostal veins, up to the level of what we call the fifth posterior intercostal vein. So subcostal vein, yes, at the level of T12, yes, T11, okay, T10, okay, T9, T8, of course, T7, T6 up to T5. Yes, all these ones are going to drain directly into this Azygos vein. As I said, is lying ventral to these bodies of the vertebrae towards the right side. Now, for the 4, okay, 3 and 2 posterior intercostal vein, they are going to combine to form what we call superior intercostal vein. They are also going to drain into this, azygos vein. So please get to know that if we are talking about the second, third, and fourth, okay, second, third, and fourth usually, but sometimes you have just second and third, okay, combining to form what we call the superior intercostal vein. So please get to know that. And then that one will drain into this azygos vein. But if you look at the first, okay, the first posterior intercostal vein, yes, that one is draining, directly into what we call the right, brachiocephalic vein. So the right brachiocephalic vein, yes, receives, okay, directly, this tributary coming from what we call the first posterior intercostal vein. The first posterior intercostal vein will not drain into what we call, towards the right. The first right posterior intercostal vein will not drain directly into the azygos vein, but will rather drain into what we call the right brachiocephalic vein. Please get to know that. However, the second, third, and fourth will combine to form what we call the superior intercostal vein, which will drain into the azygos vein. So by way of tributaries, formative tributaries, we have what we call, the right ascending lumbar, vein, combined with that of what we call the, right subcostal vein, forming this, azygos vein. Yes, then as it ascends, yes, it's getting that kind of tributaries all the way coming from what we call the posterior intercostal vein towards the right, okay, up to the level of the fifth, posterior intercostal vein. Then for second, third, and fourth, they are going to combine, okay, and they will drain into this superior portion of what we call the, azygos vein. They will form rather superior intercostal vein. But the first posterior intercostal vein towards the right is draining directly into the right brachiocephalic vein. So please get to know that. Now, apart from that, it may also receive some kind of, esophageal tributaries. It may also receive some bronchial tributaries. Okay, so please get to know, as well as even mediastinal tributaries towards the right. Now, it said that we don't have a exact copy of this one. Okay, we don't have a exact copy. And so over here, yes, what we are having is just like two things becoming one in the case of azygos vein. Over here to the right, we call it hemi-azygos vein. So at the inferior aspect, yes, the same formative tributaries, yes, for the hemi-azygos vein. Okay, so we are going to have the left ascending lumbar vein combined with, of course, the left subcostal vein, which will form this hemi-azygos vein. Yes, almost at the same vertebral level, that is T12 vertebral level, and then it's of course ascends, okay, upwards, yes, by receiving that kind of other tributaries coming from the posterior intercostal veins towards the left. Okay, so it means that there's from T11, T10, T9, okay, draining into this hemiazygos vein. This hemiazygos vein eventually becomes a tributary of the azygos vein itself by crossing the vertebral body towards the right side, okay, to drain into what we call the azygos vein. Usually going to take place at the T9 vertebral level, although there will be some variations, but generally it's going to take place at the T9 vertebral level. Now, for the T8, T7, okay, T6 and T5, okay, they are also going to also drain into this portion of azygos vein, hemiazygos vein, that we call it accessory hemiazygos vein. So it means that accessory hemiazygos vein, yes, is cranial to hemiazygos vein, draining of course T8, T7, T6, up to T5, but sometimes may add T4 to it, but up to usually T5, and those ones are draining directly into this accessory hemiazygos vein. This accessory hemiazygos vein, yes, will also open, becomes a tributary of what we call azygos vein, okay, by crossing, okay, across towards the right side, okay, to drain into azygos vein. And we're going to take place at what we call the T8 vertebral level, usually T8 vertebral level. As I said, there could be variation, such that even the accessory hemiazygos vein may open at T7, hemiazygos vein may open into azygos vein at T8. But generally, these are standard, measurement we are looking at. So that is what we are saying. However, in the case of what we call, the fourth posterior intercostal vein, the third and then the second, they also combine again, just like we saw in the case of the right side. They will combine, okay, in the left side, and they will form what we call the superior intercostal vein, superior intercostal vein. And that superior intercostal vein, instead of draining into, what do you call it, accessory Azygos vein, like we saw in the case of Azygos vein, we said that they are going to drain directly into the superior portion of the Azygos vein. This one will not drain there, but it will rather drain into this, left brachiocephalic vein. Now you can see that the left brachiocephalic vein is longer and, has this kind of oblique course. That is why these, four veins will combine, forming the left, superior intercostal vein, draining directly into this, brachiocephalic vein. Yes, it makes sense that the first posterior intercostal vein will also drain into the left, brachiocephalic vein. So let's look at the distinction. The distinction is clear, such that, for the right posterior, superior intercostal veins, okay, where is a combination of second, third, and fourth, they are draining directly into what we call the, Azygos vein. But the left superior intercostal vein, yes, will have to drain into the left brachiocephalic vein alongside, the first posterior, intercostal vein towards the left. Okay, so that is what you have to know. Now, the point is that, yes, as I said, the Azygos vein is serving as a connection between, this kind of, inferior vena cava, and then superior vena cava. And we said it's going to arch and open, okay, into what we call the superior vena cava at the T4 vertebral level, Okay, so that is what, I want you to know. But sometimes these kind of, accessory Azygos vein and hemiazygos vein, what they will do is that sometimes they may combine to open directly, okay, into this, Azygos vein. All right, so this was a short video trying to, explain the Azygos system of veins. So I'm sure by now you understand, this whole concept regarding, the venous drainage of the posterior part of the thorax. I'm very grateful for your time this evening. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you.